Hello everyone, this is Sigmar bringing you an episode of Nerdadomus where we talk about all things fantasy battle, and tabletop gaming related. I want to start this podcast by saying Age of Sigmar is the best thing that has happened to the industry in decades. Now go ahead and hit that hate on button. Just hear me out though. Up until this point, up until the rumors released, everybody was in disbelief of the rumors. Some people believed them. Majority thought that it was kind of true. Maybe the third game, maybe just wrong altogether. When the Games Workshop dropped the news that it was completely doing away with Warhammer, everybody was in disbelief, and everybody was scrambling to find a way to fill that void. But up until that point, Games Workshop held a monopoly, not only in the industry, but in the mind share as well. That meaning that it was very hard for anybody to start a new gaming industry. And even if you had interest in another game, it was hard to find opponents that were willing to play. Everybody was all about Warhammer, whether it be 40K, whether it be fantasy. And so there is some sidebars where people were playing small games, but by and large, everything was all about Warhammer. And I'm no different as well. I've played games here and there, but in the end, I've always came to Warhammer as my favorite game and my favorite lore. And so it's we find ourselves in this situation now where that's no longer the case, right? And so a lot of people are fearing that everybody's being dispersed, right? And you even see in the past when YouTubers would leave Warhammer, a lot of people didn't really follow them. That was it. They kind of unsubscribed, or they just quit listening to them altogether. They kind of were gone, disappeared. But now that's not the case. It's almost like everybody's had a V8 moment. And in filling this void, everybody has become open to all these other game systems. In the forums that I visit for the first time, I'm seeing a lot of activity in Kings of War, in Death Star, or what do you call it, War Throne of Saga from Avatars of War. Even Crocodile Games for the War Gods of Olympus is getting activity. And you also have some of these smaller games like Malifaux and a few others, Dark Ages, are getting a lot of activities. I myself am starting to look at YouTubers and looking at old battle reports, reading on some of the books. I've read the rules already for Kings of War. I've never did that in the past. I read the rules for War Throne, and I never done that in the past. And so we're all exploring, and but look, we're all still talking to each other. I'm still listening to Anthony at the Sustainable Center when he's doing his podcast on Malifaux and other game systems. I'm looking at new YouTubers that I would have never listened to in the first place. I'm still listening to the guys that are doing 8th edition as well as the new Age of Sigmar game. We're not disbanded. As a matter of fact, our eyes are opened. And that's good for the industry, because I tell you something right now. I know some people have a different mind than I do, or a different belief, but I don't believe Games Workshop was the best game system out there. I don't believe they made the best miniatures out there. I think there's a lot of people that make much, much cooler and much neater miniatures at a fraction of a cost. And so then why was I a big buff on Warhammer? Because it had an established base. For starters, I've been with Warhammer since it almost started, and so it's been something that I've always gone to. And even then, I remember their miniatures weren't the best. Raw Partha, if you guys remember, were excellent miniatures. They were substantially more expensive than Games Workshop, so I preferred Games Workshop because they were good enough at the price. Now there's other guys that are actually really good out there. Crocodile Games make some beautiful miniatures. Mercy Miniatures also make some very beautiful miniatures. Probably my favorite miniature line out there. And then you have Andrea making miniatures as well. Kev White with his Hassle-Free or Hasslefarian. There are a lot of great miniature manufacturers out there. but they're all fragmented, and nobody really can make enough of a line to compete with Games Workshop. And I think that that's not going to be the case anymore. And not only that, there's an opening and there's opportunities for them. Now, all of a sudden, Games Workshop, by their own accord, has lost this monopoly. They've chosen to go a different way. And so now there's opportunities for other people to step up. And I think at this particular point, we're all looking and we're all open, right? Now, we do see a diversity of people, but in the end, we all know what everybody's doing, right? You have guys that are still doing 8th edition. They refuse to move on. And, go for it. Eventually, it's going to become such a stale system, or something that's going to come up that's going to supersede it, that they'll transition. There's the Swedish comp guys that are moving on, making their own 9th edition and their own Swedish comp game. I think that's fantastic. It's a great place to be for the time being. Eventually, that's going to get old as well. And so now you also have opportunities where King's Award, Manic Games, is trying to fill that void right now, and they're competing with other miniature manufacturers as well to fill that void. I could tell you right now, my wish would be for Avatars of War to actually, step it up. They have a great miniature line, and they have probably the best mass combat system game out there, even better than Games Workshop's 8th edition. But they don't have a lot of armies out there, so they're not in place like Manic Warriors. Now, Manic War, I'm not crazy about their game system. It's playable, right? And they do have more of the fantasy line, but I really don't like their miniatures either. So I'm not too excited about Kings of War. But nonetheless, if it starts getting more visibility, then I'll definitely pick it up as well. And then you also have Crocodile Games, and I wonder will Chris finally do something and step up his game. He's been probably one of the oldest gaming companies out there, before before Avatars of War, before Manic Games with their Kings of War. And yet he's moved very slow. Let's see if he does something here. And then you also have people that are actually building open game systems out there that are saying, hey, we're building a world, we're building a rule set, and we're building armies. And they're inviting miniature manufacturers to come make a product line. And I think that's going to be a long-term solution. And I'm hoping that's something that becomes viable, that unites all of us. Because in the end, what better way to have a great community than if we control the direction of the game system as well. But that's my background. I've always been one of a enjoying the community and interacting with the community. That's part of the reason why I started this channel. But like I said, it's a great place to be, and I'm not, and it's also affected me personally. For the first time after it happened, when I sat down and I wanted to paint, I've always felt, I have a bunch of started projects that I never finish because I have such little bit of time. And they always get preempted because I was always painting miniatures for fantasy or, Warhammer Fantasy Battle. And for the first time I sat down and I have no desires, I have no reason to paint my armies anymore. For what game system? Right? And so for the first time I sat down and I picked up some of the projects that I started in the past that I've never really got to finish because they were always being bumped and preempted out for miniatures that I wanted to bulk up as 8th edition changed the rules for dwarves or for my army XYZ. I would have to bring new models to make them competitive. Now, that's not really a complaint. That's part of the fun of the hobby. But one thing I've noticed is my painting skills never really got better because I was always trying to mass paint these models. And so now I get to slow down and really go back to the passion that really started miniature collection for me. And that's really painting up masterpiece models, right? Showcase models. And so there's a project that I started up that I finally finished. And it's something that I've been working for about 9 years. And it's just simply because every time I'd start painting it, I'd put it away. And And now I finally finished it. And now I have another project that I'm working on as well. And so, I don't know, you know, for the first time, I feel peace and serenity. I feel like I'm enjoying the hobby more now than I have ever enjoyed it in the past. And that's simply because it's a great place to be right now. If I want to play Age of Sigmar game, there's plenty of people playing it, you know, and it's fun. So, but do I have to go paint all these models and try to compete in a tournament? No, I don't have to. There's nothing out there for that. I don't want to stick with 8th edition, myself personally. I don't want to play a dead system. There's just no appeal to me for that. Age of Sigmar, sure, they translated all the rules. That's fine, but the rule, the new miniatures that are coming out, I don't really care for. I don't really like the Age of Sigmar lore, and so, you know, there's plenty of other game systems out there that have the fantasy that I've grown up and loved, and so that's kind of where I'm exploring right now. That's not to say that I'm going one way or another. It's just simply saying that, hey, I'm, for the first time, enjoying what's out there right now. And all these miniatures that I've had, that I've loved their sculpts, but never really had a reason to paint because I never had the time, or they never had a place for the armies that I played. They're getting dusted off, and I'm finishing it up. And I'm just thinking, you know what? I'm having a blast. And so that's my take on this Age of Sigmar. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. This is Kelmore signing out. Thank you. Goodbye.